Welcome back to the channel, guys. I am Matt. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope your week is going well so far. Today we're going to take a look at an RTA, a dual coil RTA. This one's been out for about a month or so. It's got some popularity and it's pretty unique, so I definitely wanted to look at it. A lot of people are likening this to the Aromomizer series. This is the Geek Vape Blitzen RTA. Here is your packaging. And just as a side note, these little stickers right here are like super duper crumbly. I had an issue with the other one that I've been using, so best to just cut it. And yes, this gives me a chance to show off my newest knife. So inside you're gonna have your RTA, you're gonna have an extra piece of glass, and then on this side you have a bubble tank, which takes it to 5 mLs. With the normal glass section, it's only a 2 ml capacity. And then you have this package of spares, which gives you a multi-tool, this other tool, which I'll show you how it works in a second 810 drip tip. Looks like the same one that they include in the drop RDA packaging. An extension chimney for when you're using the bubble tank, and a 510 drip tip for when you're using this little 510 drip tip adapter in here. And obviously a bunch of screws. So this is one of the most loaded packages of spares I have ever seen. So here is the RTA. At the base there, it is a 24 millimeter diameter, but it quickly gets wider. So it goes up to about 25 millimeters right here. 42 millimeters from the base all the way up to the top of this tip. These tips are really nice. You'll get a different colored tip depending on the color of tank you're getting. I believe these are resin. On the base there, gold-plated protruding 510 pin, says Blitzen. Here's your AFC. This whole ring will just move on an O-ring. It does not have hard stops, and then a bunch of small holes there. I think there's about 16 of them. A little logo right there. This thing is pretty heavy. I mean, there's a lot of metal on this thing. To fill it, you unscrew the top cap. You fill right in there. And this tool right here is to help you get this piece off. You might be able to unscrew it with your fingers, but as you can see, there's not much metal there. I personally wish that they would have made this a little bit thicker, maybe put some texture on it, so you didn't have to deal with a second tool. Obviously, if for some reason you lost this though, you could, do something where you take a rod and a screwdriver and basically wrench it off that way. But this tool definitely does make it a little bit easier. So there's that guy. And then here is your glass. If you swap over to the bubble tank, you want to make sure that those O-rings go back into the little slots there. So let's go ahead and do that quickly. And you want to take this chimney piece and screw it on like so. There's not a lot for the glass to sit on, so it might move around a little bit. So you kind of want to hold the glass in place as you tighten this down. And then you would take this tool, obviously, and wrench it on, then put the top cap back on. And there it is with the bubble tank installed. And then that makes it 48 millimeters. So it adds about 6 millimeters to the height. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the base. There is some texture around here to grip onto. And you would unscrew that. There it is. It's a postless design. You got your positive on this side, your negative on this side, so you're building your coils this way. Little flathead screws. I like that the screws are coming in this way, because if you're using a flat wire build, like your coil's horizontal here, you're not twisting those wires as you screw down, like if the screws were coming in from the side. We've seen that on other build decks before. Now, this has a side airflow design. As you can see, it's a pretty massive spread of airflow. I honestly wish they would have maybe tightened that up a little bit, because most coils aren't that large and that tall, but you definitely want to build according to the RTA, and I found a build that works well for me. There are these little slots in here, okay? And that basically is where that little tab part on both sides will fit in. So you'll feel it lock into place. You can kind of twist this like so, and then it locks into place and screws all together. The biggest thing with this RTA that I found is coil placement. Not just how close you are to the sides there, but height. Okay, when I first got this, I would think I was building my coils a little too low. And as you can see, that airflow is pretty high up there once you get to that domed part of the chamber. So there's, you know, it's pretty close to the top. And so you want to try to build your coils as high up as you can get away with without it shorting out on this. So it might take a little bit of trial and error. And obviously you do want to build your coils out this way as far as you can get away with, so it's pretty close to that airflow. So here are the coils that I already have installed in this black one. As you can see, I'm pretty close to that edge right there, and they're taller. They're definitely taller than the first few builds I tried in this. Basically, build your coils where you want them. Before you wick it or anything like that, screw it together in the RTA, and obviously use a regulated mod and check to see if resistance changes or if it's shorting it out at all or anything like that. But the taller you can get away with, the better, I've found in this RTA. So now liquid comes in through that slot right there, and so your wicking is going to sit on both sides, and the way the liquid transfers is through there. Now the coils I'm using are 3mm coils. When I wick these 3mm coils, I definitely think it's worthwhile to thin the wicks out a little bit. Most RTAs, it's good to do this. I don't do it a lot with RDAs. You can place your wicking into the slots. You want to keep it pretty fluffy on the sides here. I'm happy with that. A little test fire. And one other thing just to point out is that when you are building this and you just have the exposed deck on a mod, it can be a pain in the butt to get this thing off because this little ring will spin freely. Okay, so, well, there, it just loosened up a little bit. But I had times where I had it screwed on too tight on the mod, and then that ring was just free spinning. So then I had to put the tank on it and then get it off. Let's go ahead and fill it. And there's the underside of that top cap. So on a side note, if you do get any liquid collecting on here, there's no kind of cup area right there. So it's going to squeeze that liquid out. And there is a look at it on the X-Priv. I think they go pretty well together. All right, so I think that's it for the up close, guys. Let's go ahead, go back up top, vape this, and talk about it a little more. Okay, here is the Blitzen RTA. I have it in the shorty 2ml mode. Airflow is wide open. Build is reading 0.156, 75 watts. Let's vape it. Okay, let's talk about this. First off, wide open, it's a lot of airflow. Honestly, I could have had them do without. Like I said, bring that cluster of holes closer together, maybe get rid of a few holes, and I think it would still be a plenty airy vape personally, but as is, it's a pretty airy vape. It's there's not a lot of restriction. So that leads me into a con. You know, that pattern right there is basically what it looks like on the inside too. And it's pretty big for a coil, you know, so you got to really, really care about your coil placement with this one and try to get it as high up in there as possible, or you're going to have a lot of wasted air. First couple builds I put in this, I just had my coil placement way too low and the flavor suffered. I'm sure that whole top row, maybe even the center row too, was barely hitting my coil and it hurt my flavor. So you want to get your coils as tall in there as you can. Do a little trial and error. Even if you accidentally, even if it shorts out a few times, obviously use a regulated mod or a ohm meter and try to find that sweet spot of the height in there. And obviously it's important too to try to get your coils as close to the airflow in there also. So, you know, one con for me is I wish that the air flow pattern was a little bit different, a little bit smaller, maybe even just a single slot across, you know, 2 millimeters wide or tall or something like that. And I think even more air could have been hitting that coil. Another con for me is that I'm not crazy about the fact that, where'd that little tool go? This little thing, you know, you basically need to use something like this to get it all the way apart. I think that they could have made this piece right in here, maybe just a hair taller or something, maybe put a little bit of knurling on it or something like that, that could make it so you could grip onto it and unscrew without needing a tool. And you do want to put it on pretty tight so you don't accidentally unscrew the whole thing when you go to fill it. So when talking about the build, that basically leads you into another con, is that it's not the easiest build in the world. There's some trial and error involved. You can get a really, really nice vape off of this thing, but you might have to put a couple builds in it. And as far as single coil, yes, you could do it. You could put one single coil in there, kind of have it angled in there or something, but when you do that, even if it's a pretty chunky coil, 3.5 millimeter, 4 millimeter, you're still pretty far away from your airflow. And you know, I know a lot of people are doing that now. I see that a lot on social media where people are taking like the postless deck designs or like something like the Drop or Dead Rabbit or whatever, and they're putting one single coil in the middle. But every time I've tried that, I don't really get that great of flavor. And I feel like that is because the airflow is just too far away from that single coil. I know a lot of you disagree with me, and to each their own. If you enjoy it, that's totally cool. But I feel like your coil's getting too far away from that airflow, and so the air is coming in and going up, and a lot of it is missing that coil in the center. So, you know, while you could build a single coil in this, I really think it's more so optimized for dual coil, and that's where it shines. Now, as far as the shorty mode and the bubble tank mode, I like the shorty mode better. I personally think the closer you get to your coils, the closer your mouth is to where your coils are, the better flavor you're going to get. And so I do think that there's a little better flavor going on in there when I'm not using the bubble tank. Obviously, it's a trade-off, though, because then you only have a 2 ml capacity. Doesn't mean I wouldn't be perfectly happy using the bubble tank, and the flavor's still good enough for me, but I think that it's better in shorty mode like this. Okay, let's talk pros. First off, we must note that the build quality on this is fantastic. It's also built really, really strong. There's a lot of metal in here. All the threading has been really good. It's a pretty heavy RTA, but it's built to last, definitely. And I really like the drip tips that it comes with too, and the different drip tip styles. I really like this tip in the Nudge 22. I stole this out of my Drop RDA packaging, and I'm using it in that, and I think it looks good together. I kind of wish that we would put something like this in the packaging. But anyway, I like that they give you all those different drip tip configurations. You can use your own 510s. You can use the 510 they include. You can use this 810, or you can use this very, very pretty 810. So that's cool that they give you all those options. Another pro is that I do definitely like the vape I get out of this. My preferred vape off of this, though, is closing it a third, maybe close to half of the way down and vaping it that way. And I get plenty of flavor from that, and it's really, really good. It seems like it's a more of a dense vape. You know, there's a little more maybe air pressure going on in there with the airflow, and I really like it. So if you like a restricted lung hit like me, definitely try that out. So close it down to about a third, a half, and the flavor shines through more that way too. And also, it's worth pointing out that it's really, really cool that they did give you an extra shorty glass, so you have 2 of these, and then the bubble tank glass. So there's a lot that comes in this package for the price. I think it's around 35 bucks. Might even be 30 in some places in the States. So to sum it all up, pros, looks great, build quality is awesome, love the drip tips on it. It's a fantastic RTA that feels higher end than a lot of them out there at the $30 price range. You can get a really nice vape off of it with some caveats, those being, you gotta find the proper build for this. It is a little bit fiddly as far as that goes, and you gotta get your coils up high, okay? I'll say that one more time. Get your coils up high. And when I do that, I get a really, really nice flavorful vape. And it might not be the best flavor out of any RTA I've tried, but it's more than enough for what I'm looking for. As far as the cons go, it's, again, the build, the fact that you do have to fiddle with it. It's not something I would suggest to somebody that's new to rebuildables. Although, you know, if they are mechanically inclined, I'm sure they can figure it out. But, you know, it takes a little bit more to get the vape that you want out of this. But once you do, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And another con, obviously, is that in the 2 ml mode, it's got a really low juice capacity. You're going to be filling it a lot, but I like the flavor better in the 2 ml mug. Oh, and one other thing worth pointing out is that I have not had any leaking issues with this at all. Yes, it doesn't mean that it's leak proof. Obviously, you know, liquid could come out these side slots here, but it's going to be a lot harder for that to happen than, you know, on some other conventional RTAs where you got the airflow down at the bottom. So I'd love to know what you guys think. I know this has been out in the wild for about a month now, so I'm sure some of you guys have it. What are you enjoying? I know some of you are going to argue with me on putting single coils on decks like this. And like I said, to each their own. I know a lot of people do it. It's very popular with a lot of RDAs. I just haven't had super fantastic success with it, with putting your coils, you know, in the center and hoping that airflow gets to it. So I think that's it, guys. I will put a link in the description for where you can pick this up. Don't forget to check out our other channel, Matt and V. That about wraps it up. Until next time, thanks for watching. Suck my mud.